Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Want to give you guys a quick update on Bitcoin. In light of this crazy market action these last couple of days, we're seeing Bitcoin sell off pretty good here. Some volume coming in on the downside on the 1 hour and the 4 hour charts. So how much lower can this go? What's going on here? The alts are certainly taking a pretty good hit across the board for the most part. And we'll see where this goes. So I just want to focus on Bitcoin very quickly here. I won't do the full market cycle. Let's take a quick look at the coin market cap, however. So looking at that, we've seen a pretty big pullback here from the old highs. Now, there's been a couple of things going on here. We know that coinmarketcap.com did adjust some of the market cap due to some of the big arbitrage and price differences in the Korean exchanges. And so that was the first one that happened last week, kind of shook the market up a little bit. But then there was the Korea FUD, the potential for regulation and all that, and we just haven't really recovered from that. You can see the market cap here over the last week or so, it's come down from 800 plus down to now around 650 or so, and it's coming off a little bit. The altcoin market is pulling back a little bit after a huge run that we saw over December and early January. We saw the BTC dominance hitting new lows here around 32%. And so we're starting to see a little bit of a reversal in that, but there's still some strong names showing up. NEO, for example, this week. NEO, I thought we were going to see 200. We did in some exchanges, but wow, that's been so strong. And there's always going to be those alts that are just going to rally. But across the board, alts have been a little bit on the weak side this week. So let's take a look at Bitcoin here today. This is the daily chart. During my last update last week, I did point out the fact that we were crossing below this 50-day moving average. We were right here testing it. We finally did cross. We have been living below the shorter term 10-day EMA, which I use as a first indicator, right? You can see that, here in this last section back here, right, we were below that 10 EMA for the most part. And we finally switched into more of a bull mode. Right now, we're kind of living below that. And there's also this, I guess a lot of people call it the death cross, right? It has a couple of names, but it's basically when this moving average crosses below the longer term moving average. And you're seeing that happen right now, that 10 EMA is crossing below the 50-day moving average. Prices are also living below both moving averages. And so from that account, things are looking a little on the weak side, looking on the bearish side, just because we're now both below the shorter term moving average that's pointing south, as well as the longer term 50-day moving average. So if we want to see this thing reverse, we definitely need to get back above that 14.5K level, and that'll really start to turn the momentum. Now, zooming in a little bit, on the 1 hour, what I'm looking at near term, you're seeing this breakdown here in the last couple of hours with volume coming in. We're trying to find a low. We're certainly oversold near term. And so we're due for a little bit of a bounce. You can see the RSI here at the lows was hitting 30s. And if you zoom in at the shorter term time frames on the 30-minute chart, we were down to 23 on the RSI. So at best, we're due for a little bit of a pause. I'd like to see a little bit of a rally and a bounce, but I'm afraid that that bounce may be a little short-lived. You might see some scaling out, some profit taking as we approach that 13.3, 13.4 level. And so we'll be wanting to watch that. One thing I want to point out, though, is if you look at the more recent action on the 1 hour chart, what I'm not liking is this series of lower highs we continue to make here. And so you can see we're just kind of forming this pattern. Let me clear the volume out for you guys. And looking across the lows here, we're finding some good support, in and around that 13K level. We're undercutting it a little bit here, but it's starting to form a little bit of a descending triangle. And so those tend to be bearish. They break to the downside when they do. We're starting to poke below it. We're oversold near term, like I said, so I'm expecting a little of a bounce. The bounce will determine a lot. But what I don't want to see is a bounce into this trend line and then a fail, which will ultimately end in a pullback lower below that. If we see that, how far could we go? Now, a couple of areas to look at near term, right, is these key support lows that we saw during the first couple of shakeouts, and those are going to be must hold levels. And so we could retest that. And on the 4 hour chart, zooming out a little bit here, you can see those levels are I don't know, about 10-15% lower from here. Let's see if we go down to there. Yeah, that's only 5% lower. Now this long wick that we saw in a lot of exchanges, right, that'd be the 10 to 15% lower. That's around 11K. And if you do a measured move on this descending triangle, that's actually where it projects down. That would be worst case on this pattern here, but we're pretty oversold near term, so I don't expect a straight down from there. But if we did bounce and broke, then that could potentially be the first target, right? That $11,000 level if we can't bounce here. On the daily chart, looking at the downside, right, the RSIs, they tend to bottom on Bitcoin. We have these big pullbacks around 30, right? 42 right now, so there's still some technical room to the downside. And you can see here, let me put the log chart on for us. When it bottoms out, you can see we had that huge bottom after that washout in middle of July. RSI went all the way down to 27 there. You saw another one here happen in mid-September. RSI went all the way down to about 28 there. And so we haven't quite seen that big shakeout. Now this has been a long consolidated pullback from the highs around 20K. And so maybe we get that one leg down, that shakeout that really sends things to the lows on the technical side, and then we resume from there. So a couple of ways to go, you know, and looking at the bigger picture, also seeing a broader downtrend that's still intact with the floor here really starting to tighten up. And so a couple of bearish patterns forming. I want to see that break near term to the upside. We want to see it recapture this 14, you know, this 13.4 level or so, and the test is going to be this descending trend that we're doing. We were attempting to put a little bit of a double bottom here. We needed to confirm by getting above that 14.5 level. We rallied earlier today, almost to there, couldn't quite make it, and then just saw a pretty quick pullback here. And so those are the levels I'm watching, guys. I'm cautious here. Still holding some BTC, but watching these lows right in and around here, certainly making for some tough trading on the alt side. Alts are getting hit pretty hard, so not a lot there. Now near term, definitely oversold on a lot of these names, and so I'm looking for a little bit of a bounce. The bounce is going to say a lot. There's always those shining places. Neo has been a good place, but I'm thinking we're due for a pause there. Ethereum has been outperforming up until recently, so there's always a couple of names that are just looking good. The good news is crypto moves pretty quick, so we'll have these big moves up, these big moves down, and they tend to happen in a matter of days. And so sometimes it's best to just let things play out. And this is trading, right? So sometimes you're looking at trading and sitting on the sidelines and waiting out. When you're talking about longer term entries and holds, a lot of these alts that I'm really liking are starting to hit some pretty good lows, or come off the highs 30-40% or so. And so I'm starting to look at those for potential longer term entries if this market can start to firm up here. So that's what I'm watching. I just want to give you guys that quick update. I'll do a more full market wrap tomorrow, and so stay tuned for that. Until next time, take care.